a mystery that will keep you on the edge of your seat. A high-stakes courtroom drama turns into a shocking personal mystery when Judge Eleanor Hayes hears a young trespassing suspect utter 4 words that shatter her world. "You are my mother." What happened after that changed their lives and revealed secrets that no one could have imagined. Follow along with us to find out what happened. If you like the video, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. The gavel's echo faded into the tense silence of the courtroom. Judge Eleanor Hayes adjusted her glasses and scanned the document before her. The case seemed routine, a minor charged with trespassing. But as she glanced up to see the defendant, something unsettled her. The boy stood behind the defendant's table, small for his age but with a quiet intensity in his eyes. He wore a faded hoodie and scuffed sneakers, his dark curls messy from what appeared to be days of neglect. There was no lawyer beside him, no parent in sight. "Where is your legal guardian?" she asked, her voice measured. "I don't have one," the boy said simply. She frowned. "Your name is Noah Carter, correct?" He nodded. Eleanor's grip tightened on her gavel. This was already irregular. Juvenile defendants rarely stood alone. "Do you understand the charge against you?" "Yes, Your Honor." A pause. He held her gaze unwaveringly, his demeanor composed. But there was something beneath it. A storm waiting to break. "You were caught trespassing at the law offices of Davidson and Finch. Can you explain why you were there?" The boy didn't flinch. His answer came clear and calm, yet it sent a chill through the courtroom. "I was looking for you." A murmur spread through the audience. Eleanor's pulse spiked, but she forced herself to maintain composure. "Looking for me?" Noah took a small breath, and then spoke with the weight of something far greater than his years. "You are my mother." The room turned to stone. The murmurs ceased. The clerk stopped typing. The bailiff glanced at her, unsure whether to intervene. Eleanor's vision blurred for a fraction of a second, a roaring silence filling her ears. The words hung in the air like an impossible riddle, one she couldn't begin to decipher. "That is a very serious claim," she finally said, though her own voice sounded foreign to her. "I know," Noah replied, "but it's the truth." That night, Eleanor sat in her office long after the courthouse emptied. The city lights glowed through the window, but they did nothing to illuminate the questions consuming her mind. Noah Carter. A child she had never met, yet something about him was disturbingly familiar. The way he looked at her, the way his voice carried a conviction that made her chest tighten. She dug through the official reports. Noah had been in foster care since infancy. No listed parents, no birth certificate on file, only an adoption attempt that had fallen through years ago. A child with no past, except he thought she was his past. 2 days later, Eleanor stood outside St. Mary's Orphanage, where Noah had spent most of his life. She had no jurisdiction to intervene in his case, yet something compelled her to be here. Sister Agnes, an elderly nun with sharp eyes, led her to a small, dimly lit office. "Noah has always been different," the sister said. "Smarter than most. He asks questions others don't dare to." "What kind of questions?" Eleanor asked. Sister Agnes hesitated. "He's been looking for his parents for years." Eleanor's throat tightened. "Did he ever have any leads?" The nun sighed. "Once he found an old photograph." She pulled open a drawer and retrieved a single worn picture. The moment Eleanor's eyes landed on it, her breath caught in her throat. It was a younger version of herself, standing in what looked like a hospital gown. She looked pale, her eyes unfocused, and in her arms, a newborn baby. Her fingers trembled as she turned the photo over. Faintly scrawled on the back was a date, 13 years ago. Eleanor sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. Her mind was a whirlwind of fragmented memories, but none of them explained the photograph. She had always been certain of her past. A brilliant law student, a rising star in the legal world. She had built her life on certainty, control, and unshakable logic. But if that photo was real, then someone had stolen something from her, a past she never knew she had, a son she had no memory of bearing. A chill ran down her spine. Who had done this to her? And why? Determined, Eleanor hired a private investigator, a man she trusted from past cases, Logan Pierce. A former detective, he had an instinct for uncovering buried truths. 2 days later, Logan walked into her office with a grim expression. He dropped a manila folder onto her desk. "You're not going to like what I found." She opened it, scanning the documents inside. Hospital records, medical files, her name, but under procedures performed. C-section. The room tilted. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. "It's real," Logan said. 13 years ago, you gave birth at a private hospital. But here's where it gets weird. There's no record of the baby leaving with you. No official birth certificate. It's like the child just disappeared. Eleanor's stomach turned. "Someone erased him from your life," Logan said. "The question is, who? And why?" She clenched her fists. There was only one thing she knew for certain. She had to find the truth. And she had to protect Noah, before the people who did this to her came back to finish what they started. Eleanor sat in her office long after Logan left, staring at the damning evidence before her. The photograph, the medical files. The truth was an abyss, and she was standing on the edge, staring down into it. Someone had stolen her son from her, erased his existence from her life. But how? And who had the power to manipulate records so cleanly that even she, a judge, had never suspected? Noah Carter wasn't just a boy in her courtroom. He was living proof of a conspiracy she hadn't even known existed. And now, that conspiracy was unraveling. She had to act fast. Eleanor reached for her phone and dialed Logan's number. "I need more," she said, the moment he picked up. "I need to know everything. I want surveillance footage from the hospital. I want to know who was on duty the night I gave birth. I want names." Logan sighed on the other end. "This is bigger than we thought. I ran a deeper check. That hospital you supposedly gave birth in? It shut down a year after Noah was born. The records were misplaced in a fire. No surviving staff, no files. Someone wiped the place clean." Eleanor closed her eyes. Every road led to a dead end. Someone had made sure of that. "We need another way in," she said. "There has to be a hole in their cover-up." "There is one thing," Logan admitted. "The orphanage. St. Mary's took Noah in. But where did he come from before that? If someone wanted to hide him, they had to plant him in the system." Eleanor stood, grabbing her coat. "I'll go there myself." The drive to St. Mary's was long and silent, the city lights fading into darkness as she reached the old, worn-down orphanage. Sister Agnes was waiting for her, as if she had known Eleanor would return. "You're looking for more, aren't you?" the nun said quietly, leading her into the office once more. "I need to know how Noah got here," Eleanor said. "Not just his time in foster care. I need to know before that." Sister Agnes hesitated before unlocking a drawer in her desk. She pulled out a worn leather notebook and opened it to a specific page. "He was left at our doorstep when he was a few days old," she said. "No records, no note. Just a single item wrapped in his blanket." She handed Eleanor a small, rusted locket. Eleanor's breath caught. She recognized it instantly. It was hers, a piece of jewelry she hadn't seen in over a decade. Her fingers traced the engraving on the back. E.H., her initials. The weight of it in her palm felt like holding the past itself. She looked up at Sister Agnes. "You kept this all these years?" The nun nodded. "I knew he would need it one day, and I knew someone would come looking for him." Eleanor clenched the locket. "Then why didn't you say anything before?" "Because I was afraid," Sister Agnes admitted. "Whoever abandoned that boy here, they didn't want him found. And I fear that if you start asking too many questions, they'll come looking for him again." Eleanor's blood ran cold. She had no doubt now, this wasn't just a case of a lost child. Someone had gone to extreme lengths to keep Noah hidden. And if they found out she was digging into the past, they wouldn't hesitate to erase him again. Back at her home, Eleanor sat at her desk, staring at the locket. She hadn't noticed Noah standing at the door until he spoke. "You found something." She looked up, startled. "Noah, what are you doing here?" "I followed you," he admitted, stepping inside. "You want answers." "So do I." Eleanor hesitated, then handed him the locket. "This was left with you when you were a baby." Noah studied it, running his fingers over the engraving. "It's yours." "Yes," Eleanor said, "which means you really are my son." A silence stretched between them. Eleanor saw something shift in Noah's expression. Not just relief, but understanding. He had always known something was missing from his life. Now, the missing piece was standing right in front of him. "I don't remember much from when I was little," Noah admitted, "but I always felt like I was looking for something. Like I didn't belong anywhere." "You belong here," Eleanor said, her voice softer than she intended. "And I'm going to make sure no one takes you away again." Noah looked up at her, his dark eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "Then we have to find out who did this." Eleanor nodded. "And we have to do it before they find us first." Outside, in the darkness beyond her home, a figure sat in a parked car, watching the house. A phone buzzed in their hand. They answered in a low voice. "She knows." A pause. "Should we proceed?" A cold response came through the receiver. "Not yet. But if she gets too close, eliminate them both." Eleanor's fingers hovered over her phone. She had spent her entire career uncovering hidden truths, but nothing had ever felt as personal as this. Someone had stolen Noah from her, and now they were watching. Waiting. She dialed Logan. "We have to move fast." "I know," he said grimly. "I traced an old employee from the hospital, Dr. Richard Langley. He disappeared after the hospital shut down, but I found a recent medical license renewal under a new name." "Where is he?" "An old private clinic on the outskirts of the city. He might have answers." Eleanor grabbed her coat. "Meet me there." The clinic was nearly abandoned, the parking lot empty except for a single flickering streetlight. Eleanor and Logan approached cautiously. Inside, the air smelled of antiseptic and dust. A receptionist, barely paying attention, waved them toward the back office. Dr. Langley was older, his hair graying, his eyes darting nervously when he saw them. "I told you, I'm not—" "We're not here to arrest you," Eleanor cut in. "We need the truth." Langley hesitated, then exhaled. "I knew someone would come eventually." 13 years ago, Logan prompted. "A baby was born in that hospital. The records were erased. The hospital burned down. You were there. Tell us what happened." Langley rubbed his temples. "I was a part of something I regret. There were experiments." Eleanor's breath caught. "Experiments?" "They were taking newborns, Selective cases. Children born under specific circumstances. I didn't know why, but the orders came from high up. Your case was different. How? Langley sighed. Because you weren't supposed to have a child. Eleanor's blood ran cold. What do you mean? You had complications. You were unconscious when you delivered. When you woke up, they made sure you never knew. She felt dizzy. Who? Langley shook his head. I never saw their faces. Only orders. But someone powerful wanted that child out of your life. Logan stepped forward. Where did the babies go? Langley hesitated. Adoptions. Some went into private care. But Noah, he was an anomaly. He wasn't supposed to survive. Eleanor clenched her fists. But he did. Langley nodded. And that's why they'll come for him again. A noise outside. Logan moved quickly, peeking through the blinds. We have company. A black SUV idled outside, its engine humming. Then the doors opened. Eleanor grabbed Noah's hand and ran. They barely made it out the back before bullets shattered the clinic windows. Logan returned fire, covering them as they sprinted through the alleyway. Tires screeched behind them. Whoever was after them wasn't giving up easily. A car pulled up beside them. The window rolled down, revealing Sister Agnes. Get in! Without hesitation, Eleanor and Noah dove inside. The nun floored the gas pedal, weaving through the streets at breakneck speed. How did you... Eleanor started. I knew they'd come, Sister Agnes said. They've been watching. Who are they? Noah asked. Agnes's expression darkened. People who profit from secrets. Eleanor gritted her teeth. We need to end this. The final piece came from Logan's digging. A name, Jonathan Mercer. A wealthy businessman with deep political ties. He had funded the hospital's secret projects, including the forced separations. He had the power to erase identities, to manipulate systems. Eleanor sat across from him in his penthouse office. He smirked. Judge Hayes, you've been very busy. Give me one reason not to bring you down, she said. Mercer chuckled. Because you don't have enough. The records are gone. The witnesses, missing. You're grasping at shadows. Eleanor slid a USB drive across the desk. This says otherwise. Mercer's smirk faltered. Logan had cracked into hidden files, recovered deleted footage. Proof of Mercer's involvement. Proof of the stolen children. You think exposing me will change anything? Mercer said coldly. You don't understand the scale of what you're up against. Eleanor leaned in. Watch me. The fallout was immediate. With Logan's evidence, Mercer was indicted. The truth about the stolen children made national headlines. The network was dismantled piece by piece. And Noah? He was finally free. Eleanor stood outside the courthouse, looking down at him. You'll never be alone again. Noah smiled. I know. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt whole. She had found her son, and no one would ever take him away again.